ಇಬ್ಬಂದಿ ಇಬ್ಬಂದಿಯಲ್ಲಿಯೇ ದರ್ಶನ ಕಾಣೋ.
Greetings. This is Shekhar Purna here. Mutual assistance in the face of a destructive natural disaster, compassion, the rejection of apathy, and a sobering behavior that leaves the fragile emotional resilience of urban dwellers to time, along with immense loss of life and economic devastation, were all witnessed in India in 2004. I know it might seem untimely to pile up all the facets of a terrifying catastrophe like the tsunami and link it here with AI. But because a natural onslaught is of one kind, while technological advancement is another form of onslaught, I have brought these two subjects, the tsunami and AI, here. I have presented these two examples so that the purpose of this posting becomes clearer. Let us just scratch the surface of the US presidential election matters. Specifically, the friendship between Trump and Elon Musk, a bond and cooperation that extended right into the election. One is Trump, who is in a rush to become the leader of the entire world. The other is Elon Musk, who is in a rush to become the master of technological world. These are days when one cannot seem to exist without the other. Both fell prey to an arrogant stubbornness of, "What are you without me?" After Trump came to power for a second term, Musk was appointed as an advisor to the ODEGE project aimed at improving government efficiency. Musk played an active role in cutting government spending, simplifying regulations, and administrative reform. However, Musk publicly criticized the Trump government's major tax and spending bill, or One Big Beautiful Bill. In response, Trump warned of reviewing government contracts and subsidies being provided to Musk's companies. Both criticized each other harshly via social media. Subsequent developments. After a few months of intense conflict, the tension between the two eased slightly towards the end of 2025. Within the framework of the law, Trump is reported to have said in 2026, "Musk is my friend again now." However, analysts opine that their political relationship is not as strong as before. Yet one thing is certain, numerous reports bear witness to the fact that the political and economic alliance between these two has managed to endure. The alliance between America, or Trump, and Elon Musk remains deep, and the current socio-political and economic structure seems to be ensuring that this alliance will continue in the future as well. There is no doubt about it. Using Notebook LM, I have compiled information here on how our urban society, which has mounted the wild horse of securing online jobs, has behaved. Listen and see. It is against this entire backdrop that we need to comprehend the true scope of AI. Thank you for listening, Shekhar Purna.
When you picture a force of nature, something like a massive wave hitting a coastline, it's just entirely physical.
Right, yeah.
You can actually watch that wall of water forming. You can measure the wind speed or, calculate the sheer kinetic energy before it even makes landfall.
Yeah, exactly. The destruction is just so tangible.
It really is.
Yeah.
But then look at the explosion of artificial intelligence over the last few years. You aren't watching a wall of water. You are looking at servers humming in windowless buildings or algorithms silently multiplying in data centers.
Yeah, the reshaping of society is happening completely invisibly.
And today's deep dive is built just for you to explore this exact contrast. Our source material today is this really fascinating reflection written by Shekhar Purna on July 15, 2026. He argues that the invisible architecture of an AI explosion and a physical tsunami are fundamentally the exact same thing.
It's a staggering comparison to make, honestly, and clearly it is a comparison that is resonating globally. I mean, Purna's piece wasn't just published and forgotten.
Right.
It was rapidly translated across English, Tamil, Telugu, and Malayalam.
Oh, wow, that fast.
Yeah. And when a piece of writing cuts across that many distinct linguistic and cultural boundaries that quickly, it tells you the author has tapped into a universal anxiety. People everywhere are just, trying to find the vocabulary to describe what this technological shift actually feels like on a human level.
Which is exactly the mission of our deep dive today. We're going to explore that vocabulary. We're going to look at how Purna draws this parallel between natural disaster and technological upheaval.
Yeah, and then the second half of his thesis, which is how this onslaught is being managed by the most powerful political and economic alliances on the planet.
Okay, let's unpack this, because starting a piece about the future of technology by dragging the reader back to one of the deadliest natural disasters in modern history.
It's heavy.
It is a really heavy, deliberate move.
It is. Purna grounds his entire argument in the year 2004, specifically focusing on India's experience of the devastating Indian Ocean tsunami. And he does not gloss over the horror of that event at all.
No, he really doesn't.
The text explicitly details the immense loss of life, the fishing villages wiped off the map, and the absolute economic devastation that occurred in just a matter of hours.
But then the focus of his reflection kind of quickly shifts, right?
Right.
To the behavioral mechanics of the survivors.
Yes, exactly. He highlights how, in the immediate aftermath of total systemic collapse, you see this sudden, massive rejection of apathy.
Rejection of apathy, right? That sudden realization that no official system is coming to save you fast enough.
Right, so the community has to become the system.
Yeah, like neighbors pulling people out of the rubble or strangers sharing rations.
Exactly the dynamic Purna points out. When the physical infrastructure is just swept away, human compassion temporarily fills the void.
But it's temporary.
Yeah, the text pivots to a sobering observation about what happens after the immediate adrenaline fades. Purna uses a very specific phrase here. He notes that a disaster of this scale leaves the, quote, fragile emotional resilience of urban dwellers to time.
Wow. Fragile emotional resilience. That is incredibly evocative.
It really is.
It paints a picture of a society where, the physical buildings that might eventually be reconstructed, but the psychological foundation of the people living inside them has just been hollowed out.
Yeah, they are just sitting there, hoping the passage of time will somehow rebuild their internal defenses against the sheer unpredictability of the world.
It perfectly captures the mechanics of trauma. The water recedes, but the fundamental belief that the ground beneath your feet is stable, well, that's gone.
Completely gone.
Now, I do have to jump in here with some pushback, because I felt a real friction when reading this part of the source.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, comparing a physical wave that physically drowns cities to, like, lines of code that automate cognitive tasks, it feels almost hyperbolic.
I can see that.
Like, is AI really a sudden tsunami? To me, it feels more like a slow, creeping tide. I mean, we have had algorithms curating our feeds for a decade. We've had generative text models slowly getting better year by year. We're only just now looking down and realizing the water is up to our waists.
What's fascinating here is how Purna anticipates that exact friction.
Oh, he does.
Yeah, he acknowledges that linking the horrific, visceral realities of the 2004 tsunami to artificial intelligence might seem a bit disjointed, but he defends the analogy by focusing not on the speed of the water, but on the structural mechanism of an onslaught.
Okay, an onslaught.
Right, a natural disaster is an onslaught of nature that structurally invalidates the physical environment. Technological advancement at this current scale is simply another form of onslaught that structurally invalidates the economic environment.
Oh, I see. So the comparison lies in the sudden evaporation of a community's livelihood.
Exactly.
So in 2004, a fishing village lost its boats, its harbor, and its ability to generate sustenance overnight.
Yeah.
And with AI, a community of, say, copywriters, paralegals, or data analysts finds that the fundamental mechanism they use to generate a living has been automated out of existence. The economic harbor has been destroyed.
Precisely. Nature's onslaught destroys the physical infrastructure, leaving us emotionally fragile. Technology's onslaught disrupts social cohesion, the value of human labor, and the very definition of work itself.
And both forces are vastly larger than any single individual.
Right, and both entirely reshape the landscape without asking for consent. The resulting damage to our fragile emotional resilience is practically identical. We are left wondering if the skills we spent decades building will have any value tomorrow.
Which brings us to the immediate practical question. If we are facing a tsunami-level force, this technological onslaught, who is in charge of building the levees?
That is the big question.
Right, like who is trying to control the water, or at least coordinate the lifeboats?
Well, Purna answers this by zooming all the way out to the macro-political landscape, which he notes is currently dominated by a deeply entangled alliance between two modern titans.
And the transition from the existential threat of AI to the egos of the people attempting to govern it is, it's jarring but completely necessary.
Absolutely. Purna introduces Donald Trump and Elon Musk as the central architects of this era. But he frames them through their underlying motivations rather than just their titles.
Yeah, so Trump is described as a figure driven by a relentless rush to be the leader of the entire world. And Musk is described as a man in a rush to become the absolute master of the technological world.
It is the ultimate collision of two distinct types of gravity. You have traditional political power, which relies on borders, legislation, and mass populism.
And then you have technological power, which relies on code, infrastructure, and disruption. Purna observes that they reached a state of intense interdependency, noting these are days when one cannot seem to exist without the other.
Which is a vital structural point. To achieve his vision of political dominance, Trump needs the technological infrastructure, the communication platforms, and the wealth generation that Musk controls.
All right.
Conversely, to achieve total technological dominance, Musk needs the favorable regulatory environment, the government contracts, and the legislative protection that Trump controls.
But Purna points out the inherent danger here, right? This codependence breeds an arrogant stubbornness.
Yes, he characterizes their dynamic with the silent underlying challenge of, quote, "What are you without me?"
What are you without me? Man, that is a volatile foundation for global governance. But the source material shows they did put this alliance to work practically.
They did.
After Trump secured his second term, he brought Musk in as an advisor to the DOGE project, the Department of Government Efficiency. And this wasn't just a ceremonial board seat.
Far from it. The mandate of DOGE was essentially to treat the federal government like a bloated tech startup that needed to be aggressively downsized.
Right. Purna details that Musk played a highly active role here. We are talking about slashing federal spending, gutting complex regulatory frameworks, and driving massive administrative reform.
From Musk's perspective, this is a highly logical mechanism. If you are trying to colonize Mars, build autonomous transport, and scale artificial general intelligence, the biggest obstacle isn't the technology, it's the red tape.
Yeah, the bureaucracy.
Exactly. By controlling the Department of Government Efficiency, Musk was effectively clearing the runway for his own technological empire while fulfilling Trump's political promise to shrink the government.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
The fundamental incompatibility of their two worlds.
Exactly. You have two massive egos, both believing they're the primary architect of this new world order.
Yeah.
The breaking point arrives over a piece of legislation famously referred to in the text as the One Big Beautiful Bill.
Right, the omnibus bill.
Yeah, this was a major tax and spending package pushed by the Trump administration, and Musk publicly, loudly criticized it.
And to understand why this caused such a massive rupture, you really have to look at the mechanics of political versus corporate governance.
Okay, break that down for us.
Well, a traditional politician often relies on massive spending bills like infrastructure, subsidies, local projects to maintain political capital and satisfy various coalitions. It is how traditional power is maintained.
Makes sense.
But to a tech billionaire focused entirely on hyper-efficiency and cost-cutting, a massive omnibus spending bill looks like the exact disease they were brought in to cure.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Musk's public criticism wasn't just a disagreement, it was a direct challenge to the mechanism of Trump's political power.
And Newton's third law applies just as heavily to politics as it does to physics, right? The reaction was immediate. Trump didn't just fire off a mild disagreement. Purna details that Trump threatened to review all the government contracts and subsidies provided to Musk's companies.
He aimed directly at the structural load-bearing pillars of Musk's empire.
Let's break down why that threat is so severe. When we talk about these subsidies and contracts, we aren't talking about small tax breaks.
No, not at all.
SpaceX fundamentally relies on multi-billion-dollar contracts from NASA and the Department of Defense to maintain its launch cadence and fund its deep space ambitions.
Absolutely.
And Tesla's dominance relies heavily on federal grants for building out national electric vehicle charging networks and consumer tax credits. If the federal government pulls those levers, it doesn't just hurt Musk's feelings, it threatens the viability of his entire operation.
And the fallout spilled entirely into the public square. They engaged in a harsh exchange of criticisms via social media, essentially forcing the public to watch the most important political-economic alliance of the decade seemingly tear itself apart.
But Purna's timeline shows us something incredibly telling about how power actually operates at this level. This intense conflict only lasted for a few months.
Right.
Tensions began to cool toward the end of 2025, and by 2026, the reconciliation was public and complete. The text literally quotes Trump saying, quote, "Musk is my friend again now."
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals the cold, underlying reality of the current socio-political structure. Analysts covering the fallout noted that their personal relationship was likely permanently fractured.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But Purna makes a crucial distinction here. Their political-economic alliance remains incredibly deep and enduring. The structural reality of their ambitions forces them back together.
Personal ego takes a back seat to structural necessity.
Exactly.
Trump cannot navigate the modern technological and media landscape without Musk's architecture, and Musk cannot scale his technological monopolies without Trump's regulatory umbrella. They are economically bound to each other, regardless of what they say on social media.
It is a perfect demonstration of how insulated these figures are from the chaos they manage. They can threaten to dismantle each other's empires, experience a massive public fallout, and then seamlessly resume their partnership because the economic framework practically guarantees its continuation.
Which brings me to a quick point.
Yeah.
Just a reminder for you listening, this deep dive is completely impartial.
Yes, definitely.
We are simply exploring Shekhar Purna's observations of this volatile socio-political dynamic. We aren't endorsing any specific political viewpoints here, just looking at how these massive power structures interlock with tech.
Exactly. We're just following the source material.
Right. So what does this all mean for the rest of us?
Mhm.
We have established that the titans at the top are safely insulated by these massive interlocking economic structures. They will always patch the levee when their own castles are threatened. But what happens to the everyday person on the ground level of this AI tsunami?
This is where Purna's reflection shifts from geopolitical analysis back to deeply human observation. He brings the lens right back down to the urban society he introduced at the beginning of the text.
He uses an image that perfectly captures the anxiety of this era. He describes our society as having mounted the, quote, wild horse of securing online jobs.
The wild horse metaphor is just brilliant because it implies a total lack of control. A wild horse isn't a vehicle you steer, you know. It's a volatile force you merely survive.
Let's look at the mechanics of this wild horse. As AI begins to automate traditional cognitive labor, like coding, writing, analysis, administrative work, the traditional career ladder disappears.
Poof, gone.
Instead, people are thrust into this hyper-competitive, globalized gig economy. Securing an online job isn't a one-time event anymore. It is a daily, frantic scramble to prove your value before an algorithm learns how to do it cheaper.
And Purna includes a fascinating meta detail here that actually proves his own point. To compile this information about how society is scrambling for online work to synthesize the data on this AI disruption, Purna actually used an AI tool.
Wait, really?
Yeah, he used Notebook LM.
Oh, wow. And for context, Notebook LM is an AI research assistant. You don't just search for keywords with it. You feed it massive amounts of raw text like articles, PDFs, data sets, and the AI actually reads, comprehends, and synthesizes the core themes for you.
Right. It does the heavy cognitive lifting.
Yeah.
The irony is inescapable. To understand the human suffering and economic anxiety caused by the AI onslaught, the author outsources the cognitive labor of analyzing that anxiety to an AI.
That is wild.
It perfectly illustrates how deeply we are already entrenched. You cannot even analyze the beast without writing it.
It makes me think of an analogy. Trying to survive in this economy is like trying to build a new roof while the foundation of your house is actively sinking into the earth.
Yes.
You are so focused on the immediate tasks, like learning the latest AI prompt engineering, hustling for a freelance contract, staying on the wild horse, that you don't realize the entire structural foundation of your industry is being swallowed whole.
And this brings us entirely full circle to the very first point Purna made. This frantic, daily struggle to keep the roof from collapsing while the foundation sinks is exactly what drains our fragile emotional resilience.
Right.
The psychological toll of constantly adapting to a technology that threatens your livelihood is identical to the hollowed-out feeling following a physical disaster. We are living in a state of perpetual recovery from an onslaught that never actually stops.
We are exhausting our emotional reserves just trying to prove we are still economically useful. And while we are down here desperately trying to saddle this wild horse, the people who actually own the stable are arguing over government efficiency bills and defense subsidies.
The disconnect between the macro governance of AI and the micro survival of the individual is profound. The Titans view this technology as a lever for global dominance. The everyday urban dweller views it as an existential threat to their ability to pay rent.
Let's pull all these threads together to look at the complete picture Purna has painted for us.
Sure.
We started by looking at the sheer, undeniable force of a natural disaster, establishing that an onslaught, whether made of water or code, structurally invalidates a community and shatters its emotional resilience.
Yep.
We then moved up to the stratosphere to watch how this technological wave is governed. We saw the high-stakes, ego-driven alliance between a political titan and a technological titan.
And we watch them clash over the mechanics of governance, only to seamlessly patch things up because their mutual economic survival demanded it.
Right. And finally, we crash back down to the street level, where everyday people are likely to ride the wild horse of a rapidly shifting digital economy, desperately trying to maintain their footing as the ground moves beneath them.
This raises an important question, one that Porna's text strongly implies, but leaves for us to grapple with.
Okay, let's hear it.
The source material shows us clearly that the billionaires and politicians steering our technological future believe they hold the reins. They will always patch up their differences because they assume they are in control of the underlying structures.
Right.
But if the wild horse of artificial intelligence is truly as powerful as a force of nature, if it is a tsunami disguised as lines of code, what happens when it outgrows the reins entirely?
Oh,
Are the titans who are currently fighting over who gets to ride the horse completely unprepared for the moment the horse decides it no longer needs a rider?
wow. If the wave is big enough, it absolutely does not matter who is wearing the captain's hat or what alliances they have formed. The boat is still going exactly where the water takes it.
Exactly.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Our goal is always to help you look past the noise and understand the deeper currents driving our world. Take some time to reflect on the structures you rely on and how you are building your own emotional resilience in the face of this wave. Because whether it is a physical wave hitting a coastline or an algorithmic tide rising in a data center, the water is coming. See you next time.